Add a touch of elegance to your grandma's favorite dishcloth with an upgrade. This is the C2C eyelet square. It is worked corner to corner, and we have eyelets in here with a nice eyelet and garter stitch border and beautiful stockinette in the middle with eyelets. It has just a wonderful movement in the stockinette to add a lot of interest from either direction. You can use it as a square alone or make more and put it together in a beautiful project like a bag, a blanket, a garment, whatever your heart's desire. We're gonna make this today on the knitting loom. We've got a few options, but you can always bump that up and use a bigger yarn and a larger gauge loom. And if you'd like it on knitting needles, there is a pattern link below and also video tutorials. Let's begin here on Good Knit Kisses. Welcome to Good Knit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. For the pattern and list of supplies, please click down below in the video description for a link to our blog. You can get it for free on our website, or you can download it off of Ravelry and our Etsy stores for an ad-free version of the PDF. We also have right and left-handed video tutorials, so click down below to get that. Let's jump in and look at the materials that you're going to need. For this particular square, it is a 6" by 6". We're working with a medium worsted weight yarn. This is a number 4 cotton yarn from Yarn Bee called Fundamental Cotton. It is a color camel. It's a mercerized cotton yarn, which means it's nice and strong and durable. You can use this yarn weight, or you can use a heavier yarn weight. If you use a heavier yarn weight, you're going to want to step up on the loom gauge to do that. But if you use this yarn, I got 5 of the squares out of 1 ball because they are about 20 grams each. So keep that in mind if you're trying to gauge how much yarn you need. And speaking of the looms, I used the KB Looms Flexi Looms Skinny. This is a 3/8 inch center peg to center peg, a 3/8 gauge loom. It's also called a small gauge loom. You need at least 38 pegs for this one. You could alternatively use the KB Looms or knitting board all in one loom, and one of these sides will do because one side is 48 pegs, so this will do nicely. Just cast on right in the middle and continue to increase until the decrease and you complete the square. So this one works really nice if you want something rigid. Otherwise, the Flexi Loom works beautifully as well, and it travels really well. If you need links to those down below, we do have affiliate links, and you can click down in the video description and the part that pops up on YouTube for our store. All right, so we're going to go ahead and grab supplies. We'll do a quick overview on the pattern before we cast on. All right, be sure and grab your pattern. You can print it off and mark off tally marks for each row, or use a row counter and click it off every time. Keep in mind, this is for right-handed knitters the way it's written, but do what I do. If you're a lefty, the video will be reversed, and if I say knit 2 together, technically when you work in your direction, it's actually a slip knit and so on. So it's okay, just do what I do on the screen, and you'll get the same looking results that we have here. Also, let's go over some of the stitches that you're going to need to know. I'm going to do all of them for you on this loom along, so if you haven't and you're a beginner, try it out, see what you think, or watch the video first. All right, so we're going to have knit 2 together, purl 2 together, and then the other decreases are slip knit and slip purl. The only difference is if the right goes on the left or the left goes on the right when you're putting your stitches together. We're also going to do a yarn over. It's actually a flat yarn over, not the E-wrap, because if you do an E-wrap, it's going to cover your eyelet with a little twisted stitch, and it's not as pretty. And then we're going to do a U-wrap knit and purl on here as well. And here's a few other terms just to show you what the short abbreviation is. Let's go down. You're going to want to read all your notes. Notice at the end of all the rows, I have a stitch count on here. That's on purpose to make sure that you keep up and you know what row that you're on, and if you've increased properly or decreased properly. Every row is going to go up by 1 stitch, except for in a couple places right here between rows 6 and 7, we're going to jump from 9 stitches to 11, and then much further down in the decrease, it happens 2 more times where we're decreasing 2 on there. Okay, so moving forward, we're gonna go through this loom along and we're gonna cast on. We're gonna go all the way up until we have 14 stitches. And then you'll notice these are in sections of 4. Each section of 4 starts with what I'm gonna call an eyelet row. And that's one of these rows that have all eyelets in between. So every time we have an eyelet row, you're gonna be adding one more eyelet than you did the row before. So they're actually very repetitive. So once you understand a couple of these eyelet rows and the rows behind, all the rows behind are really exactly the same as they were before. So we're going to do a few of these together, and I'll come back and just show you the eyelet rows only. And then we're going to come to the decrease area and do the same thing. I'll probably go over the first 8 rows with you just to make sure you understand how they begin, especially the eyelets. And then we'll pause and we'll meet back up down at the end when you have about 14 stitches left, and we'll work the ending together. All right, I know that wasn't quite quick enough, but it's about 3 minutes. And now let's dive into making your square. All right, so my loom is set up this way. You do not have to do that. In fact, if you don't have a flexi loom, again, it's okay. But I have mine in groups of 4 with 2 darks and 2 lights next to each other, and it just made it easier for me to count my stitches, really. So this is how I have it set up. I have 40 pegs connected in the round. It doesn't have to be connected at all in the round. That's okay, because we're gonna be working back and forth. We're not joining this, and I'm only using 38 pegs, so I will have 2 pegs empty at the end of this, and then you'll know that you have the right number. All right, so let's begin casting on. We're going to make a slip knot. Just wrap that around your finger, take the back loop over the front, and do it one more time, up and over. Place it on your loom. I'm placing it on this peg here to begin. It doesn't matter, but yours will turn out like mine does if you place it in the same place and you want to reference the video and where these stitches are to see if you're doing okay. So if you happen to use a flexi, you might want to start at where I'm starting. Okay, and use your playback speeds if you need it to go faster or slower. All right, so we're going to begin with the double E-wrap cast on, and you don't need to wrap this first peg again, and you're going to go over to the next peg and double E-wrap, so E-wrapping it twice. Knit bottom over the top and tighten it up, and E-wrap again the next peg, 1, 2, lift up and over and tighten that up, and you've cast it on. We're going to work in this direction, and that's the direction that I like to purl. I'm right-handed, so it's from right to left. If you're left-handed, you'll be purling from left to right. And if you want the opposite way to do it, just go click on the other video down in the video description below. I'm going to try not to use the words left and right in here so that it's not so confusing. All right, so I'm going to purl the foundation rows. So you go ahead and purl all those stitches. If you haven't done it before, you lay the yarn below your loop, pull up a loop, take the old loop off, place the new loop on, and tighten it up. Go ahead and do that 2 more times. And that is the foundation row, and you have 3 stitches. Every row after that is going to increase by 2. And we're also going to be working the stitches to the outside. So we're always going to be moving when we begin each row. We're going to move stitches out in that direction, and we're going to add a yarn over for our increase. So the first thing we're going to do is U-wrap knit this first peg. So knit 1 stitch and move it to the outside. Pick it up, move it over 1 time, and go to the next stitch. Just put your yarn behind the empty peg, go in front of the next peg, knit that, pick it up, move it over, and now you have an empty peg for the yarn over. Just simply place your yarn in front of that peg and work the next peg, and that will give you 4 stitches across. All right, so now we want to begin our purl row, and we're going to put our yarn to the front and purl that stitch, pick it up and move it to the next one. Okay, so we're working we're moving them to the outside, and we're working our way this way. Go ahead and purl the next stitch, which was a yarn over before, pick it up and move it over, tighten up that stitch, and now we have a yarn over to increase. It's just a flat, and we're going to purl the next 2 stitches. These are the last 2 stitches. This is the only time we're going to be purling all of those on a purl row. On the next rows, all the middle stitches are going to be stockinette, so they're going to be knit, and the first 2 stitches and the last 2 stitches on a purl row are always going to be purl. So go ahead and purl those 2. Okay, we have 5 stitches and we're ready to begin row 3. We're going to do what we did on row 1, which is knit 2 stitches and yarn over. So we're going to knit 1, move it to the outside, knit the second one, move it to the outside, put your yarn forward, yarn over, and knit to the end of the row. Okay. All right, got 6 stitches, yarn forward, do the same thing as we did before. We're going to purl the first 2 stitches and move them to the outside. Be sure and tighten that up. Purl the second one, move it to the outside, yarn forward to yarn over, and now we need to knit until the last 2 stitches. So in this case, we're knitting 2 stitches. And then bring yarn forward and purl 2 stitches. We have 7 stitches and now we want to make 8. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to knit 2, yarn over, and knit to the end of the row. Again, pause your video or slow it down if you need to catch up. Okay, yarn forward, and we're going to purl 2 stitches and increase of the yarn over just as before. And now we need to knit until we have 2 stitches remaining. So in this case, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches knit. And one way to make sure that you have the right gauge on your stitches, especially when working this direction, or at least to me, I like to hold my yarn behind my peg, knit it over, and then put my loom tool behind it while I wrap the next stitch so that I have enough tension. I don't have too tight of stitch. It doesn't become a flat knit. Okay, it still remains a U-knit. So we're just gonna knit that stitch, hold it in the back, wrap at the next peg, knit over while I hold it at the back, and then bring it forward. And we have our last 2 stitches, and we are going to purl those 2. Okay, stop. All right, just make sure that you have 9 stitches on here. So I've got 4 here, and 1, so that's 9. And now we're gonna jump by 2 stitches just on this row, okay? So we're gonna move over 2 times to prepare for 2 yarn overs to increase it to 11 stitches. We're going to knit the first stitch and move it over 1, 2 pegs, okay? It'll be loose right now, that's okay, we'll tighten it in a second. Go ahead and knit the next stitch. Make sure your yarn is behind these pegs. Knit it and move it 1, 2, and go ahead and tighten. So I'm just gonna pull on this yarn here and make sure that it's tight. All right, and now we're gonna yarn forward and we're going to yarn over. Put the yarn behind the empty peg, bring it forward again. Go ahead and knit the next stitch. Sorry, I'm holding it different all the time because I'm trying to see which one works best for showing you on the camera. But I knit that stitch and move it over to the empty peg. So we're still moving to the outside, tighten that up, and go ahead and knit the next stitch and we're going to move that over one. So we have a knit, knit, yarn over, and a knit, knit, and then here's our second yarn over, and now we can knit to the end of the row. And you should have, oh, I did something different on there. Oh, you know what? I did not knit that stitch earlier. Let's go ahead and knit that over. But you know what? That one's going to be a tighter one than before. So I'm just going to try and give myself a little bit of tension there, but try not to do that again. You probably saw me with that mistake. I'm just going to leave it in here. Okay, so all right, knit this one and continue to the end of the row. You've got 11 stitches across, and now you're going to work your next three rows exactly how you've done before. So you're going to purl 2 stitches, moving them to the outside, yarn over, knit the remaining 2 stitches, and then purl. And then, so that's a purl row. Then you're going to come back and you're going to make a knit row where you knit 2 stitches, move it to the outside, yarn over, and knit all the way to the end of the row, and then you make another purl row. So when I say make a knit row, a purl row, a knit row, you'll know exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to save time on the video so that we can really cover all the stitches that you're really, or the rows that you're really going to want to see, which are those eyelet rows. So go ahead and do those rows now that you've gotten used to it a few times, and do the purl row, a knit row, and a purl row. When you get back, we are going to have 14 stitches on our loom, and we will start this eyelet row process. We'll see you soon. All right, we're ready to begin row 11. I want to show you, this is what you've done so far. It may not look like it from that point, but this is where we are. You've actually got the first eyelet done. That was that increase when we went from 9 stitches to 11. And so now we're going to cover our first 2 eyelets. All right, so we're going to begin this row the same as we've done before. We're going to knit 2, yarn over. So go ahead and do that. Okay, knit 2, yarn over, and we want to do that twice. So we've only moved it outward 1, and that's all we're going to do because we're only increasing by 1 stitch on all these rows. But how we're going to do that is go ahead and knit the next 2 stitches, and then don't do the yarn over yet, but the very next one after the yarn over is an SSK, and we're going to be taking the left stitch and putting it on the right. So you're doing the opposite. If you're a left-handed knitter, it's you're gonna move it in the direction I'm showing you, but it moves the opposite way for you. So go ahead and do that. And so now you're ready for this next part where you yarn over, and then you're immediately going to SSK, slip, slip, knit. It's just working 2 stitches together. All right, so knitting that over. All right, and now we're going to knit 1 stitch. Okay, and now we want to pick up, so here's where your yarn is, right here. Okay, and we're going to skip this peg, this next peg, and move the one after that on top of it. Okay, so moving it backwards this direction. Okay, and that is a knit 2 together. So right-handed knitters, you're taking the right and putting it on top of the left, and it's an SSK for left-handed knitters, but just move it in the direction I'm saying. So you're going to knit those 2 stitches together. All right, and then now we have a yarn over, and we're going to knit to the end of the row, and you'll notice that you have 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At the end of eyelet rows, you're always going to have 5 stitches on the increase rows, and when we decrease, you'll actually have 6 stitches at the end. So when you're in increase, you have 5, okay? So just yarn over and then knit to the end. I'm going to show you another way to do that knit 2 together if your stitches are too tight. So we'll do that on another row, but I'll tell you right now, if yours are too tight right now, you can put your yarn behind the peg that you're skipping first, go to the next one, knit that one over, then move it and put it on the previous stitch and then lift up and over, and that will also do a knit two together. But I'll show you on another row what I mean. So go ahead and finish knitting to the end. And then you should have 15 stitches for your eyelet row. All right, go ahead and pause your video. You're gonna want to make a purl row, a knit row, and a purl row, and you'll have 18 stitches. So when we come back, we'll have 18 stitches and be on row 15. Ready to begin row 15. We have 18 stitches, and we're on this end. I'm going to knit 2 and yarn over twice. This is the same as we did on the last eyelet row. So I'm going to knit 2, yarn over, and then knit 2. And then before I yarn over, we're going to pick up the next stitch, move it over 1, and then we're going to yarn over and work those 2 stitches together. For an SSK, we're going to knit 1, and then we're going to knit 2 stitches together. The way to do that easily without picking this stitch up and moving it over is to skip the next stitch, go to the one after that, knit it, pick it up, place it on the previous stitch, knit over, and you're ready for your yarn over. Okay, so that completes that sequence. Now we're going to come to the part where we're going to have asterisks. So on this row, you're not going to see an asterisk, but this little spot right here is going to get repeated again and again until you have 5 stitches remaining. So you're going to pick up on this on all the other rows. Just want to point it out now. So you're just simply going to knit twice, 1, 2, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So if you want to skip a stitch, knit the next one, pick it up, move it back, knit over, and then you have 5 stitches remaining with that empty peg. So we're going to yarn over and then knit the remaining stitches, which will be 5. So if you find that you have 6 stitches left or 7 stitches left, then you messed up earlier on there, or maybe you're supposed to be on what's called a knit row where it won't work out right and you're not ready for an eyelet row. Okay, so continue knitting to the end. Go ahead and finish that out. You should have 19 stitches when you finish, and you're going to continue working your purl row, knit row, purl row. Pause your video and finish those rows out. I will meet you back up for row 19, and you should have 22 stitches. We'll see you there. All right, you have 22 stitches. You're ready for row 19. We're going to begin with knit 2, yarn over twice. Yarn over, knit 2, and we want to move that stitch over for an SSK and get ready for the yarn over. Go ahead and yarn over and SSK, knit 1, and then knit 2 together. You can pick this one up and move it back again, or do the trick that I was telling you earlier. You can see this is a little bit tight. So go ahead and knit those 2 stitches together. All right, and then yarn over. And then the very next set is going to be knit 2 together, yarn over, and it has an asterisk on the pattern. So knit 2 together, and yarn over, and you're going to repeat from the asterisk, those 4 stitches, you're going to repeat that 1 more time, and then you'll knit to the end, which is those following 5 stitches. So right here you've got knit 2 together, yarn over, and then you have 5 stitches to knit to the end. And so that is the remainder of your eyelet row. So all of the other rows after this, row 20, 3, 27, and 31 are all going to be the same way, except after you do that asterisk section, the next time you do it, you'll be repeating it twice. The next time after that, 3 times, and after that 4 times, and then we'll be ready for our decrease. So I think that you should have this covered. Of course, after an eyelet row, you're always going to do a purl row, knit row, purl row, constantly adding 1 more stitch every time. So every 4 rows, you have 4 extra stitches. All right, so go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and just tell you, pause your video, work on that until you have 38 stitches across the whole thing, and you're ready to decrease for row 35. Pause your video. I will see you there. All right, so we are ready for the decrease. I have 38 stitches going across. It looks like this, and you can kind of pull it to make sure it kind of eases the tension, but it won't fully ease the tension until you actually have it off of your loom. All right, we're going to go ahead and start the decrease. Now, the eyelet section that we have is going to be let's see, right here we have these increases that you just did, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 eyelets. And then what happens is when we start doing the decreases, you actually have 7 eyelets again, but it just shifts over. And at the other end, you know, where we ended with 5 stitches at the end, this one actually has 6. And I know it doesn't sound right, but it is right. So be watching for that. All right, so I'm going to show you the eyelet rows a couple of times and what the repeating purl and knit rows do, because they're slightly different on the decreases. So we'll do a couple of those, and then I'll have you meet me at the end, and I'll repeat some of this as well. Okay, and when I say meet you at the end, I mean meet you at a certain stitch count. So, all right, we're going to begin our decreasing. First, just go ahead and knit 1 time, and we're going to be moving our stitches inward, okay, to the middle. So we're going to pick up the next stitch and just pick it up and move it in 1, and then when we just knit, just move it in 1 again. All right, so we have a knit 1 and then slip slip knit, or SSK. All right, so we're going to knit those 2 stitches together. All right, and then we have a yarn over and SSK again, and this is what we did in the previous rounds or rows, where we pick a stitch up and move it over and knit those together, and then we have a knit 1 and then we knit 2 together by moving that stitch back. So let's do that again. We're going to pick up 1 and move it, yarn over, and work these 2 stitches together, and then knit 1, and then knit 2 together. So pick up, we're going to skip a stitch, pick this one up and move it back 1, or you can do the trick where you knit that first and then move it back and knit it together. So go ahead and knit up and over, and then we have a yarn over. All right, so this is the same asterisk section that we've done on all the other previous rows. You're going to knit 2 and then knit 2 together, yarn over, and keep repeating that all the way down to the end, where you should have 6 stitches remaining. So if you set up your loom like I did, it would look like this at the end of that row. All right, so I think you have this, you'll be able to do it, but let's just show you here. We're going to knit 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to skip that stitch, knit 1, move it back, and knit over, and then yarn over, and begin again with our asterisk section. Knit 2, knit 2 together, and yarn over. Okay, so go ahead and continue that row and finish out your last 6 stitches that you knit. Pause your video, and when we come back, we will be on the purl row, and I'm going to show you the difference on that one. So I want to show you how to do the next few rows together. All right, you should have 37 stitches when you're finished with this row. We'll see you soon. All right, we're row 36, and this one, it's funny, we're on row 36, and by the end of it, you will have 36 stitches, so that's the only time it really lines up like that. All right, so put your yarn forward, and we're going to purl the first stitch, and then the next one, we're going to purl 2 together, and then a yarn over, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So first, let's go ahead and just set these up. We're going to take the next peg or stitch and move it inward 1, and then you can go ahead and move this last one inward as well. So you've already purled that, all right? And so before we finish this out, go ahead and we're going to pick up the very next stitch and move it over again, because this is going to be a knit 2 together, okay? So they're worked the same way, just one is purled and one is knit. So now we have our purl 1, we're going to do a purl 2 together, and then we have a yarn over, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So we've decreased only 1 time on this row, technically. So the row count is decreased by 1. We have 2 decreases that we worked, except we have an increase with the yarn over. It only changes by a stitch count of 1 though, okay? And that's the only thing you're doing on this row to decrease. So you're just going to continue knitting until you have 2 stitches remaining and purl those last 2 stitches just like all the other purl rows. So go ahead and work that, continue knitting across to the remaining 2 stitches and then purl those. Pause your video and I'll meet you back up for a knit row. We'll see you soon. We're on row 37 and we're going to start just as we did on our eyelet row, but it's much simpler. So you're going to knit 1, and we're going to go ahead and move 2 stitches over. So we're going to pick up the very next stitch and move it over 1 time, and then go to the next stitch and pick that up and move it over 1 time. So this is going to set us up to knit 1, which we're going to move that over. There we go. And then we're going to work these 2 stitches together, which is a slip slip knit, and then yarn over, and then work these 2 stitches together for another slip slip knit, and then you're going to knit until the end of the row. All right, so knit 1, SSK, yarn over, SSK, knit to the end of the row. So go ahead and work that, pause your video, and when I meet you back up, we'll be on the purl row again, and I'll just remind you what that looks like. We'll see you soon. We're ready for row 38, and this is another decreased purl row. We're going to purl 1 stitch, and let's go ahead and move these stitches over so we can have a purl 2 together and then a knit 2 together. So we're going to pick this stitch up and move it over 1, go to the next one and pick it up and move it over 1, and now we can go ahead and move this outside peg in. We just purled it. All right, and we're going to purl these first 2 stitches together, and then yarn over on our empty peg and knit these next 2 stitches together. And that's all you do on that purl row that's different. So you're just going to knit all the way until you have 2 stitches remaining. Okay, knit all those and purl the remaining 2 stitches, and that is a decreased purl row. All right, so I think you've got the decreased knit rows and decreased purl rows down. Pause your video, I'll meet you back up for another eyelet decrease row here in a moment, and you should have 34 stitches remaining on your pegs. All right, we're going to do one more decrease eyelet row that I'm going to demonstrate for you, and then you should have all these techniques down. So go ahead and you're going to knit the first stitch, and then we're going to move over these stitches twice. So pick up the next stitch and move it in 1, go to the next one and move it in 1. Whoop. There we go. And move in this very first stitch in 1, and you're ready to begin that row. So we've already knit it, and then we want to work these 2 stitches together. Going to yarn over, so we have an SSK, yarn over, and then we have another SSK, and then knit 1, then we're going to knit 2 together, so we're going to skip behind that one, knit this one, pick it up and move it back, it's stuck on there. All right, and then we have yarn over, and then we're going to repeat our asterisk section. This is the beginning of the asterisk where we knit 2 and then knit 2 together, yarn over, all right, and then that's yarn over, and then you continue knit 2 together, yarn over all the way until you have 6 stitches remaining. So it'll look like that. So you'll notice that you have an empty space, and then you have 6 stitches remaining. So usually I just sit there, and whenever I'm doing these asterisk repeats, I'll go, okay, I've got knit 1, 2, and then I move the 2 together, and then I always have a space. And so I always know after I have a space, I hit knit 1, 2, and then if I see I only have 4 stitches remaining, then you'll know, oh, well, I already did the first 2 of the 6, and then I just knit those last 4. Okay, does that make sense? So go ahead and continue doing your decrease eyelet row, and then you're going to do a decrease purl row, a decrease knit row, and another decrease purl row, and then refer back to your pattern. You're going to continue that patterning all the way until you get to the row where you have 14 stitches left, which is row 59. And the only thing you're going to do that's different is it's not going to have that repeated section. It won't even have that at all. So after you knit 1 SSK, yarn over SSK, and then you just have a knit 1 and then a knit 2 together, and then a yarn over, and you only have 6 stitches left, and so it brings you to 13 stitches, and then the remaining rows for that are really the same as what you've been doing the other ones. So what we'll do is have you meet back when you have 10 stitches remaining on your loom. So be sure and look at that pattern and double check it. Pause your video, and we'll see you when you have 10 stitches remaining. See you soon. All right, you've got 10 stitches left. We're on the home stretch. This is where you are on your knitting. We are at this point here. You can see this is the last yarn over that you did on row 59, the yarn over in the middle, and you've gone a few rows past that, so you should be about right here. So we have a few yarn overs left with the garter stitch border, but none in the middle of the stockinette. So we're going to continue on going from 10 stitches down to 8 and complete our square. So go ahead and begin as you've done before. We're going to knit 1 SSK, yarn over SSK. So do that again, knit 1, and then move your stitch in for the slip knit, and move that last stitch in, and then you can go ahead and move this one over so you have a yarn over and then another SSK next to it. So we're going to knit, and knit those 2 stitches over, yarn over, and then knit these 2 stitches over for SSK. There we go. All right, and now we have a knit 1. This is still the same as we've done before in the beginning, a few stitches here, and then we have a knit 2 together. So we're going to move this stitch over here, or you can work it how you've done before. work those 2 stitches over. And now we do not have any more yarn overs at the end here. We're going to simply knit these stitches and move them over. Okay, so we've already decreased at the front end. Now we're going to decrease at the end just by this last knit 2 together that we did, and we're just simply moving these down to join the other stitches. Okay, so you should have 8 stitches now, and we're going to do a purl row and take it down by 1 stitch. Now we're going to purl 1 and do the same as we've done before. We're going to move over and purl 2 together, and then we're going to have a yarn over and a knit 2 together. So we're going to pick this stitch up, move it over. All right, now we can go ahead and move over that purl that we just did. All right, and purl these 2 stitches together and yarn over and knit 2 together. Whoops. All right, now we just need to knit 1 more stitch because we have 2 remaining that need to be purled at the end. So purl the last 2 stitches, and you should have 7 stitches remaining. All right, so now we're going to go from our 7 stitches down to 6 and start with a knit 1 and SSK just as we've done before. So we have knit 1, move this second stitch over to the third, and go ahead and move the first one down, and we're going to slip slip knit, just knitting those 2 over. All right, and then we want to yarn over and then knit 2 together, knit these 2 stitches together. So we're going to pick this one up and actually, yeah, so sorry. So we're going to make room for the yarn over here and put these 2 together, but I need the this stitch on top of this one. So I'm just going to simply pick this one up and hold it. Pick the first one up, hold it, pick the second one up and place the first held stitch onto the peg, and then place it down. Okay, and now we're going to yarn over and then knit 2 stitches together. And then knit to the end of the row, which is just knit 2. And we have 6 stitches remaining. And we're going to purl 1 and purl 2 together, just as we've done before. Move this last stitch inward. Go ahead and purl those 2 stitches together. Okay, and now similar to what we did on the other row, we're also going to purl these next 2 stitches together, but we need a yarn over in the middle, and we're going to move it towards the inside. So this is actually going to be an SSP, or slip slip purl. So we're going to pick up this stitch here and move this stitch right in the very middle over to the outside, and then place this one back down. And now we have a yarn over, SSP, slip slip purl, and a purl 1, because the last 2 stitches are purled. All right, so we got 5 stitches remaining. Now we're going to go from 5 down to 3. I'm going to knit 1, SSK. So knit 1, SSK, moving that stitch in from the end, and knit those 2 stitches over. And then now we have these last 2 stitches, we're going to knit 2 together. So we're going to move this outside stitch in, and knit those 2 stitches together. All right, our very last row is going to be our bind off. It's going to be slip 1, purl 2 together, and PSSO, or pass the slip stitch over. So we're just simply going to pick this middle stitch up and move it over to the outside. So we're slipping this first stitch. So let's slip 1 and then purl 2 together. Pick that stitch up, place it on our slip stitch, and knit over. You're going to pass this slip stitch over and then pull it out for a loop. Go ahead and cut it and pull out your yarn, and you are done with your square. And now all you need to do is weave in your tails, and I like to put a stitch marker on the end here so I can tell which end I stopped with. Okay, and then I suggest blocking your work out to the size. I did a little light steam blocking on this just for a moment, just so you can see it lay a little flatter. And then if you do have a problem with some of your eyelets maybe not being open enough, you might come along with your hook and open up that eyelet a little bit more. Sometimes one of these stitches is right here a little bit too snug, and then you can open up that eyelet a little bit more and then steam your work, and it turns out really well. Well, I hope you enjoyed making your square. Be sure and tag me at Good Knit Kisses on Instagram. I would love to see yours, and let me know what you want to make with yours. I do have a video that's going to come up soon. We're working on a pattern now, so stay tuned for that and more loom alongs here at Good Knit Kisses. And also don't forget to make more to put together for a project in your color of choice. And a little tip is to add a stitch marker to the top so you can keep track of which direction everything's going until you decide to put it all together. That way everything's running in the right direction that you want it. All right, we'll see you soon, and happy looming. Bye everyone. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.